bil. Mabi hyrbilar finns på över 150 platser i landet och vi har nästan lika många modeller att välja på. Mabi hyrbilar. Hyrbilar som passar dig.
Hos Bright Esports i Västerås kan du testa på både NASCAR och olika formulabilar, precis som Svenska Eracingligan deltagare. Gå in på brightesports.com och boka just din tid.
And for the first time this season, we go over to the West Coast and to California for the fourth round of the Bohlin Svenska Eracingligan's Oval Series. Of course, we're having an exciting season so far with Jesper Eriksson bringing us some awesome action and winning the previous two races, but he is not leading the championship with how things are going. Myself is Cameron Roger and Lewis McGlade alongside me in the booth for this Hafli Club 350 at the Auto Club Speedway. Here's your schedule for this season. We've got 15 races in the regular season and then a 5-round playoff before we get to the championship race at Homestead, Miami. It's going to be a lot of fun and a lot of different courses coming away over the course of the season. We've had all different sorts of racing so far, from the big super speedways now to, of course, a 2-mile oval. It's going to be a bit more wide, a bit more open than we had, of course, at Bristol just a couple of weeks ago. And here is how your standings are. We have Jesper Eriksson. He is leading in terms of playoff points because he's got those 2 wins. Eric Blixt is in that second place, with Linus Broström in third and looking very strong in the championship, but has not got a victory so far. We also have the likes of Hafli Darson, your sponsor for this race, down there in 5th place, with a lot of the Alcantech cars following in behind. It's certainly going to be a very close championship leading up towards Talladega and round 15 of the championship, where we're crowning the regular season champion. And Lewis, this is going to be a very fast and open track compared to what we've had so far. What are your sort of expectations for the race today?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, it's a 2-miler, very similar to Michigan, which is obviously in that playoff phase. So I think drivers are kind of, it didn't race exactly the same as Michigan. You still got to kind of play the same kind of cards around here. Fuel saving will be a little bit of the talk of the town, trying to get it, obviously past the point of the break, to get those extra points from the end of the first or end of the stage. Kind of important to get to that point in the race with stopping as little as possible. If not, maybe going a bit aggressive, stop early, and then try and pounce on some fresh tyres. It's going to be a lot of that around here. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, certainly we've got 109 laps coming your way today with a stage break at lap 40, but we're told the fuel tank only goes around 36 laps or so. So in theory, you could try and save a little bit, but with everyone pitting potentially before that stage break, that's going to be something that we need to look out for. The points are given, but the race remains green, and therefore you have to think a little bit further into the race as well. But it's still 10 points up for grabs. Here's the number 37 of Jesper Eriksson, leading the championship, of course, and winning the previous 2 races. And what he did so well in these previous races was he always had the correct tyres at the right time. He had fresher tyres for both of the restarts, for the late restarts that we had at Kansas and Bristol, and he came through the field to win both times, just showing you how fresher tyres is going to work. We'll see how that potential strategy works out today, because as ever, it depends on the strategy and how the cautions come out. We are coming in towards the qualifying session though, and I'm expecting quite a close one around here with not loads of braking in the corners.
Yeah, I mean, basically it's one of the fastest tracks on the calendar. You're lifting off a little bit for T1. You're carrying so much speed. There's obviously no restrict plate around here, so you're absolutely flying into that first corner. Trying to pick maybe, I think something like this. If I remember correctly, again, I've not driven these cars in ages. It was something around like the second groove around here is pretty good. You don't want to go too much lower than that. It's the banking is lesser the lower down you get, so you kind of want to find out where that is. Obviously, these drivers will know exactly where it is. To your point, though, Jesper Eriksson, we were having a little bit of a chat with Linus Broström before we went into this broadcast, and I did hear you joking about the whole idea of making sure you're on fresh tyres late in the race. I think it is going to play its part around here, with it being roughly 35 to 37 laps is kind of how we're expecting a stint to be. I think obviously we know basically it's a 2-stop race. You can't save to make it on one. That's insane. But it does mean that if you were to save a little bit of fuel and maybe get to that stage to the stage points. If you were to be able to save something in that kind of vein twice in a row, you'll be in a really good spot for the final stint to basically only do 20 laps on that set of tyres, and you can push really hard. But obviously then you've got to counter everyone else being on fresher tyres at the time that you're not on them. It's going to be it's one of those hard things about over racing, is getting that strategy just right.
Yes, a crazy format. You go so long into the race to basically have a shootout in the final 5 or 10 laps. So it's certainly going to be an interesting one. But qualifying, as ever, is somewhat important. We're seeing some really close times. Top 9 inside the 10th of a second to pole position. We have Homer up towards the front there. That's a much better qualifying position from him in the number 79 machine. Havlidsen is in that second place, with Ericsson now dropping down into third. But the times are so close around here. Drivers can just shoot up in last minute trying to get their final laps. Of course, the Hafli Cup 350s qualifying underway. Pits coming the way for Holmer and Havlidsen, so we need to see if they can improve on another lap. Nieholm jumps up to the top 10.
I see. We did have a little bit of a look. Hagman's moved up into 10th. Saw a bit of fours in there. Hashtag no bias, but is driving the 78 round here, which does actually take some bias from me. It is my number after all. Although, to be fair, Jesper Eriksson's in the 37. That's my backup number. So, maybe I've got a backup favourite. We'll have to wait and see.
Yeah, as it seems, the qualifying has finished before we go into the race today. The way qualifying, of course, works in the Stars Racing here, it gives you an advantage at the front, maybe especially for that first caution, but you never know what is going to come around the corner. And from what we've seen, especially from the likes of Linus Broström sitting third in the championship, he's always had the strategy. It looks like it's going to work out his way, but then a caution has come at the wrong time. So you definitely can't have it all your own way, unfortunately, in a format like this. But of course, we'll get the grid coming your way in just a few moments' time when we get to the formation lap. Here's your grid, though, for the Hafli Cup 350. Dan Holmes on the front row alongside Havlidarsen, with Jesper Eriksson and Jonas Gunnarsson, your reigning champion and your championship leader, on that second row. Blix is in 5th place, and Dan Solo rounding out your top 7. So Alcantech, they've got 4 cars there up inside the top 6. So they are, to be honest, absolutely enjoying that one. And to be honest, for a team like that, one thing that they're going to be sort of looking out for is potentially getting those teams points as such, helping each other a bit later on. Tier and Lindorf are on the 4th row, with the 2 teammates of Erling and Hagman inside your top 10. Nieholm and Schott round out your top 12, just a 10.5 separating these top 12 over the course of the qualifying session. So it's going to be very, very close racing. Holmbro, your pole position driver from last race, is in 13th. Ericsson is in 14th. Lundberg, Scherp, Fors and Fredriksson rounding out your top 18 of the grid, and as ever, quite a big grid for today. Fargrel, Ullman, the other Ullman, Lundvall, Johansson and Carlin round out your top 24 for the front 12 rows of the race. And we've got Segholm, Broström, Salander, Skoglund, Ardsson and Bratberg there inside your top 30, top 15 rows. Half a second, though, covering these drivers. In the bottom row is Broström and Stiller to round out your top 16 rows, which are still the only driver not to set a lap time there in the qualifying sessions. We come on to the pace lap, and this is, Lewis, the time for the drivers just to get themselves prepared for those final few moments before we go green.
Some horrendous liveries on the grid. I love it. Absolutely love it. There are some crackers on this one, but wow. Each their own. I've literally just come in here just to blast people for a couple of hours. It's fine.
They don't mind it in the Discord. They love it.
Exactly. And I will have some opinions on some of these liveries. There are some good ones, though. So, there's not many. We'll focus on those. But no, you're absolutely right. All about preparing yourself, keep yourself calm. Obviously, a long race, as always. We always speak about that. Don't get involved in a wreck straight away. It is such a wide track. You have so much time to play with and so much space to play with around here. If you have qualified poorly, don't rush your way to the front. Take it one lap at a time.
Yeah, 109 laps coming the way for these drivers. As we said, a stage at lap 40, but no break. So how is the pit stops going to work out? Is anyone going to try and pit early, get some sort of undercut to jump towards the front? But then that hinders you a little bit later on, because you still need to try and make the race on 2 stops. If we go green flag all the way to the end. We're here in California. Is the Auto Club Speedway certainly in many ways a fan favorite, but will it be lasting too much longer? We'll have to find out in real life. But here for tonight is the Hafli Club up 350. Dan Holmer is on the front row. Hafli Darson on his outside. He's got some very fast drives in behind of Ericsson and Gunnarsson. As they get to the restart zone, we go green here at Auto Club Speedway. Holmer holds it on the inside, of course, for now, but let's see how the bump draft and slipstream games work as they get up to speed for the first time down this front straight away. And looks like 79 has got a pretty decent run, but let's see all the different lines working out. The high line generally works pretty nicely around here.
Yeah, the stacking up in that high line, though, as they were coming up towards the race start was terrible. The drive off of T2 from Hafli Darson's way better, though, and it pulls him comfortably clear of Holmer on the back stretch. A good start there.
Yeah, certainly very nice indeed. Hafli Darson has just got ahead, though, as they go 3 wide coming through turns 3 and 4. As we've said, very wide open track, but you do sort of pinch up towards the corners on the exit, especially of turn 2, where it's a little bit straighter. This front straight does have a sort of a curve, so it helps the sort of corner as we come across the lines. Hafli Darson leading the first lap around here. Dan Holmer's dropping down to P4, but is that a little bit of tactics as well? As going to see a lot of the high line just trying to keep control of those tyres, as Ericsson there in second place trying to work his way forward.
Yeah, you can see Holmer's now moved on to that high line. You've got Lindoff and Blix now right over the rear end. Going to receive a little bit of bump drafting, though, from the 95 of Blix. I thought Lindoff might have tried to make that lower line work. You can see he doesn't really want to run in that third groove. You could take a few of these, but like I've said before, you do not want to go lower than that second lane. If you're going lower than that, you're going to have some problems as Ericsson takes the lead.
Oh, he certainly does across the line. So it seems the drivers are happy to swap positions quite frequently. We have got into a bit of a single file formation so far, as you would kind of expect around here. A bit difficult to hold the 2x2 all the way around. Interesting lines there. Drivers going low, drivers going high, trying to get a run. It's so difficult, though, when you go on that inside line to hold that speed coming up towards the exit. And, of course, you use a little bit more tyre that way. So it definitely needs to be thought about. We're looking at a tyre drop of about 1.5 seconds over the course of the stint. So if you can make that into, say, 1.2 seconds, then that's going to be very helpful by the time we get a few laps later. Here's Gunnarsson up the inside, though, having to think about it. Coming out of turn 4, but Hafli Darson there keeping that momentum onto the front straight.
Yeah, we, like I say, seen a couple of struggles on that first lap, but no major dramas, just people trying to keep clean and, like I say, find your way into the line. Obviously, the lower down you go, the more you end up burning out that front right. So you've got to be a little bit careful of that. Although I will say, tyre drop off around here, as much as it is quite an abrasive surface here in California, it's not necessarily a ridiculously high tyre weight. Like the drop off over the stint, we're expecting them to be sort of like a second half, 2 seconds a lap slower at the end of the stint, which sounds like a lot, but around such a long circuit, compared to what you get at somewhere like Texas or even Vegas in the next round, it's not that high.
Yeah, certainly. It's not the worst one in that regard. So potentially a little bit more room for the drivers to start pushing. Here's Eric Blixt. In terms of points, he is technically leading the championship as there's a playoff points. He's losing out by 1 win to Jesper Eriksson, but he certainly looked very strong all season in that number 95 machine. And in general, his team and his teammates as well. Just 2 cars behind. There's Dan Soler, his teammate in the 13 machine, Alcan Tech, running very nicely so far this season. They got a couple of teams there, different sort of sponsor teams. But yeah, certainly making it work for them.
Crazy livery. Love it. Now that's a good one. It's just crazy. Maybe it's too crazy, but it's different and I like it. And it's actually well put together. So maybe I'm just saying that, though, because otherwise we'll get in some serious trouble on this broadcast. But we'll go with it. It is quite bright.
Well, bright esports, the bright livery. You'd hope so.
I'd hope so.
A lot of these teams, as you expect in this style of racing, they do change their liveries quite frequently, depending on sponsors, depending on races, that sort of stuff. Always a bit hard to keep up with, but that is seemingly the most common one for Linus this season. Up 4 places already. He's had good qualifying this season, but not in this race today. He needs to work his way forward as Gunnarsson has taken the lead up towards the front. Soler's also making some moves up inside the top 6, trying to follow his teammate through. As in behind, we've got a couple of the teammates there for 4s, also working their way up. Lindoff and Helmbro inside this top 10. I think we are going to see this, some drivers sort of go up, go down. No one sort of sitting in behind as we're going always 4 wide there coming through turn 2.
Yeah, I mean, you can really make like the 3 and 4 wide work around here. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not something that you want to do, and it is not. It's going to work, not very well pace wise for anyone involved. But if there is a circuit where you can see 4 wide and it's not a panic, around here is that circuit. You will see 3 wide, including that a little bit ahead of all of this, including for the race lead as well. Hafli Darson, I think, coming through on Gunnarsson.
Oh, this is some nice battles. They're trying to work a bit into a bit of a low line. 3 wide as we come across the stripe up towards the front. Almost a 4-way battle. So Homer's coming back for that P1 position they had at the start of this race. They continue to go 4 wide as it seems like the leaders maybe just slowing down a little bit, opening up the door for these drivers who continue to be 3 wide on the exit of turn 2. Hafli is leading the way, but who's going to be leading by the time we get to turn 3?
That was wild. It's getting like slower in this group. This pack is growing over a race, which is not normally that common. Lundberg nearly became Lungeberg. Yes, that is a very large stretch, but still, he did nearly lunge it in quite deep into T1. Thankfully, was able to arrest the car quite nicely, pull it down, and keep it on that second groove without going up and wash up the circuit. But yeah, this is when you get that 3 and 4 wide consistently. That's when you might see a bit of drama. It was 3 and 4 wide, like just so many rows back as well.
Oh, yes, awesome. The way that this track works, the fact you can dive it up the inside there. They kind of get into a bit of a single file on the straights, but then when you get to the corners, everyone just sort of fans out a little bit. As they've got a couple of Alcantara cars trying to work their way up the grid a little bit. I think that's Orman in that 42 machine, but he's got the 70 out 4s going up the inside there, making it 3 wide with Gunnarsson, who was leading the race at this point. He's now down into 8th position, dropping back into the pack. This is where we get into the dangerous territory where you got to be looking left and right of your screens, but it seems Force couldn't quite have that momentum. Just showing you how powerful that outside line is. You get a good car length or so on the straights.
Come on, mate, you're trying to represent the 78 here. Put some more work into it, son. Push it forward. No, I mean, I've got to say, Auto Club is, I think it's my third favorite. Maybe it's my second favorite, but it's certainly up there when it comes to like my favorite ovals. Yeah, obviously, for me, genuinely, Homestead is number 1. I absolutely love Homestead, and how like I think I've just gone like I've had some really good races and stuff around there. It's a bit different. I like Dover, and I think I prefer this to Dover, but I've got a real soft spot for Dover, even though a lot of people hate it, and I know I've just lost a lot of people's attention, and that's fine. It's a great track, though. It's so wide, it's so open. We are seeing it in this race. We're seeing the respect, and we're seeing the skill. It does take a lot of bravery and effort to take it 2 and 3 ride round here. Lundberg moving to the inside, although I think we'll probably lose out to Havlardarson on the exit of the corner, because surely he's not going to get a good drive off here.
Yeah, you hold it tight on the inside naturally because you do less meters, but then on the exit, they're just a little bit more momentum for the drivers on the outside line, now having a bit of a straighter run onto that back straightaway. And towards turn 3 now, and you see Lundberg just dives up the inside, gains those couple of meters, but then on the outside again, Havlardarson should get a bit of a run. He's actually going to be getting almost a little bit of a push there with Jesper Eriksson. They all drop down to the inside there as Homer comes across to cover in the first sort of 8 minutes of this race, but it's 109 laps. His lap counted race so fast. That's obviously what they're going to be looking out for. But if we get cautions, we might end up getting into that lap counter. We did get very close at Kansas at the second race of the season.
Ooh, yes, this is that was very low from Lundberg, but still, that's fine. Each their own. Obviously, we're only 10 minutes into this race. I don't know how many laps we've ticked off, but it's got to be close to 12, 15.
Yes, it will be
probably 12, probably 10 or 12 rather.
Yeah, the lap 40 is what we're looking for that stage. We're going, as we said, to about 30, somewhere between 35 and 40, depending on how much you want to stretch in. That might be actually a little bit of a reason why some of these drivers drop back potentially, but I don't think the fuel saving is going to be the biggest part, or at least extreme fuel saving, of course, is going to be the biggest part of this race. I think they're going to be trying to do the laps that they can with the 109 laps, of course. Dividing that by 3, trying to get that on the 2-stop strategy does mean you need to get 36.3. So you've got to get some 37 lap stints in there if it goes green all the way to the end. Yeah,
exactly. I mean, because of where you've got, the stage effectively, which is as much as there is no break in it, like they'll just keep racing, and then, the top 10 will give them the points that they're running in at the point that they cross the stripe. You're sort of like left really open as to like what to do strategically, and it actually makes it even harder. If it was a stage, the end of a stage, like I would be sat here being like, I'm just going to save the fuel. I'm just going to save the fuel, because if it's the end of the stage, it's like, that's all I'd work on at this point, is just saving the extra 4 laps of fuel. Because even if you drop to the back of the pack, well, you'll probably gain it in the pit stop anyway. And then, obviously, yes, sure, you'll probably have to start from the rear because everyone else made a stop. Blah, 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 blah. But you'll have gained those extra 10 points. That's the strategy that I would go, because there is no caution that comes out when the stage ends. I'd be sat there being like, actually, I don't know what way I would do this. I don't know what way I would go about it. To be honest, if I were in the championship hunt, I would ignore the fact that there is a stage points. I wouldn't even be thinking about it. I'm like, look, my goal here is to win the race and get the points from that. If I happen to pick up a couple of points from the stage, then perfect. But I'm not going to win them. I'm not trying to. I'm focused on the overall race.
Yeah, it's 10 points for a stage win, but it's 50 points for a race win. And going down to 40 points is P7. So if you think that getting the stage win is going to sacrifice you being inside the top 7, then yes, it is actually negative to go for the stage win. So definitely something that you need to think about. And the fact that we go green is definitely a big part of that. Will we go green for the whole 109 laps? Yeah, we'll have to wait and see for that one. I would say this track is probably one of the easier ones to do that on, but you never know what's going to happen because you don't really get these massive dives up the inside. Although there's the 2 machine going to the inside. A few drivers following down to that low line, but nothing to be had just yet in terms of any crazy moves.
Yeah, obviously, here and Michigan being the couple of 2-milers that we've got on the calendar, because they're so wide, they're so open, and you very rarely see single car crashes around circuits like this because they are so wide and so open. It normally takes 2 to create the accident. And what that means is that you don't typically have those ones where it's like a bit of a loss of control into someone or something like that, that you would see at somewhere like even like Vegas or Texas, or like, the alternative where the pack racing is so tight, like, for example, Daytona, Dega, the super speedways, because it's so much more open like that. Like cautions around here, this is certainly one that I could absolutely see going through to the end of the race without causing a caution. It's just those bits when you get like 3 and 4 wide, like right at the start of the race, where you may well get them. Throughout the race, it's not that likely. It's not that high, to be perfectly honest. I think I'm not saying that we're not going to get one, but it's more around the pit stops where we might.
Yeah, definitely it's going to be, one to probably put to the back of the mind for the drivers. Of course, at Bristol 2 weeks ago, the drivers basically knew there was going to be a caution at some point.
Oh, yeah.
So you may not think sort of 100 laps in the future, whereas here, you might actually genuinely think about where you're going to be on the race, green flag strategy. Although, as it stands, it seems like everyone is following suit at this point. They're still trying to do some high line, some low line. Holmer leading the way from Hafli Darson and Ericsson as it stands for your top 3. Blix Lundberg and the other Ericsson inside your top 6 of this Hafli Cup 350. 91 laps to go. When we get to 69 laps to go, that is going to be the stage caution. Sorry, not the caution, the stage points being gifted out, I should say. So still 22 laps from that point. Yep.
The perfect lap, obviously. Just about 1/3 of the way through the race, bit of 3 wide back in the mid pack. But yeah, I mean, like I say, getting that pit stop right is going to be crazy. By the way, if you're thinking of what round is going to be the craziest this season, I did see that we're doing a North Wilkes double header.
Yeah.
And I remember I've only ever, like, North Wilkes is probably the track on the calendar that I've raced the least. I've raced it once, and I can tell you once is enough. Oh my God, it's hard.
Yeah, it's that one's going to be very interesting. We've also got a double header actually coming up next round 5 and 6, both at Las Vegas on the 26th of October. We've got a 62-lap race and an 83-lap race. So that'll be the first double header of the season. So I think something just a little bit more interesting with that one to spice it up just a little bit. But for now, at Auto Club, we've got the one race, 109 350Ks. Over the course of this race so far. There's the 11 making, at least trying to make some progress up the inside. There's Shirt, but you'll just see as we come onto the straight, look at the momentum the 112 gets. And he's got a bit of slipstream as well, but certainly helps to be on that outside line.
Big offender for horrendous livery of the day, that 11. But I will say, from a distance, I actually quite like it. When I saw it on the starting grid, I was like, no, absolutely not. But I get, trying to get, light blue and orange, golf and all that kind of stuff. But nah, it's not it for me. But at the moment, obviously, these outside of the top 10. So if things were to run to the end of the stage, obviously in under 20 laps time now, then they would be not scoring points. Although I very highly doubt that this will be the order of the proceedings when we head into the end of the stage. There's going to be a lot of changes in this, mostly because of the pit stop.
Oh, and there goes Broström up the inside there, trying to make a bit of a dive, getting closer towards that top 10. It's Fredriksson on his outside in the 1:12 machine, who's led a fair amount of laps so far this season, but not able to get a top result. Broström just having to come back in once again. So it definitely seems the outside line and the high line is the way to go in terms of keeping that track position so far. You really have to burn up your tyres quite a bit, I think, to hold it down sort of, a low enough line to try and make a move so far. But potentially that's also the drivers not pushing the tyres just yet, just trying to hold on. What we've seen so far this season actually is a lot of the drivers who start pushing really early, they just fall off almost like a cliff towards the end of the stint, and you actually obviously lose more time. You'd rather lose 1/10 of a second a lap now than losing 1/10 or a second per lap later.
Yeah, I've always said if you want to become a patient driver and look after your tyres better in the world of sim racing, do oval racing. It will teach you patience and a race strategy, because everyone's like, yeah, but oval racing, obviously, you just tell me, obviously I'm not saying this community is, because we all know it's definitely more than that, but the wider world of sim racing, there is a lot of this stigma of it's just turning left and all this kind of stuff, and obviously NASCAR has that stigma of it's just crazy, bouncing off each other, basically like British touring cars, but turn up to 11. Whereas when you actually take part in it, you have to be so patient, accepting that you might lose 3 or 4 positions, but you'll come on strong later through the stint. And knowing that and being patient with that and trying to stick to that, it takes a lot of self-control. And like I say, I think that's what we're seeing for a lot of this grid, because realistically, I'd still think the line they're running, where you see quite a lot of them run right the way up, in that sort of the fourth groove, one off the wall. Yeah, that is a decent line. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the fastest line around here, but it's the line that is the easiest to defend using, because you carry the speed off of the corner, and it's the one that theoretically uses the least of the front right. So you're kind of looking after the tyres while still going decently quickly and able to defend your position, even though it might not be as quick as you reckon you could go at this point. It's very counterintuitive.
It really is. And to be honest, when I was younger, I wasn't really into this form of racing, but for some reason, the last 5 years, I've just started to realize how it's a marathon, not a sprint, is I guess the best way to put it. You really have to work your way through a race, especially when we get these long green flag runs. It really starts to put your drive skills into effect. And of course, the cars, they're very interesting to drive, naturally turning to the left as such. They're literally designed to do that. So they handle it just a little bit differently as well. It's very difficult to control in some ways if you start to get a little bit loose. So you have to keep it nice and calm. You have to be smooth on all of your inputs. And it's certainly, a bit of a different way. Different way of racing compared to the normal road course stuff that we do.
So there's not too many people that realistically can take oval racing and road course racing, and they're genuinely quick. As in by quick, I mean top level at both. I can only think of a handful of drivers that are really top tier at both. Obviously, you got Casey Kerwin, disgustingly quick on both. Obviously, NASCAR champion last year, not this year though. And then he's just really fast on. Jarl Tynes also up there when it comes to drivers that are just absolutely rapid at both. Obviously, Mitchell de Jong, but it is hard to do both and be fast both, because again, the methodology is completely different, and how you have to drive a car is completely different.
Yeah, it's a proper weird form of racing, and I love seeing these different lines that they go down and they converge at the top there, coming onto the back straight, go back into single file. Although we're not seeing that from Lundberg having a bit of a look down the inside once more, trying to get through Blixt. And in fact, quite a lot of them. That's Hafli Darson in the 81 machine. He's trying to go low. Ericsson's following him through as well. They're trying to get a bit of a run here on Holmer. They haven't done this for a few laps, side by side, potentially across the stripe. No, Holmer had enough momentum there to hold on, as we're going to go on to lap 29. So we're expecting another sort of 6 laps or so, maybe 7 laps before we start seeing these pit stops come in for the first round.
Yeah, obviously you can see Lundberg there keeping it low. Some drivers are just far more comfortable taking a low line, basically a bottom feeder. You see this a lot in actual NASCAR. Obviously, there are a few that just prefer being down low. Not everyone likes being up at the wall like Larson and that lot. You can make it work by being low, and you can even make it so you come on stronger. Kevin Harvick, I think, is probably one of the most notable drivers that went, especially when he's fairly new to the world of NASCAR, never really liked being up high, never really liked being up by the wall, always liked to keep that low line. To be honest, that's kind of where I'm at as well. I don't like going up near the wall because I'm always expecting to understeer into it. The bravery to run it up there, you see that extremely high line, I think it might be by Blixt, basically that almost rubbing the rear right fender across the wall.
Yeah, it's the confidence, as you say, that you have to have for that is absolutely amazing. Here's Broström on stream. Of course, we were mentioning him earlier. He is one of the main sort of series admins, league admins of the Bohlin Svenska Eracingligan, and he's a big fan of NASCAR. And he's up 16 places already inside that 71 machine, up towards the top 10. That's going to be 1 point as it stands as we go across to finish lap 30. Definitely making his way forward rather nicely. And of course, maybe just losing a place there for now, but just slowly working his way up and trying to use a bit of a racecraft to get up there. This is the opposite of the races we've seen him so far this season as Lundberg moves up into that second place. Linus normally is up towards the front and then holding on later on, whereas now he's sort of been the aggressor trying to come through from the back.
Is he really a big fan of NASCAR? I wouldn't.
Oh, wouldn't know.
No, I wouldn't know. And next thing you would tell me he's a big fan of Coldplay.
Definitely wouldn't know that.
But no, obviously, yeah, working as well. I've got to say this low line's actually working really nicely for Lundberg. We are approaching the pit stop, so maybe they're just driving like Lundberg and obviously Bristol. They're like, right, let's move forward now before we get into that pit stop sequence. Kind of use the tires. If you're expecting to come in fairly soon, if you're splitting the race in thirds, you're really not very far away from coming in at all. So this could be big. Lundberg's trying to go over the race. He obviously won't get it because Holmer's going to have the run around the outside and will have the momentum onto the straight. But you can see there, I think Ericsson was the one just joining Broström on the low line coming into 3 and 4.
But Homer's love it. Everyone's coming at least to a lower or mid-line. But look at Homer. He's the highest out of everyone coming through turn 4 onto the front straight. And it seems to be working rather nicely. But once again, we're seeing almost a bunch up of these cars towards the front. Are we seeing a little bit of a slower lap times towards the front? Is the drivers in behind starting to push just a little bit now? They know the pit stops are coming. And it's one of those things we were mentioning. Do you stop? Do you wait? If everyone stops, then you might as well stop as well. So I think that's potentially what we're going to see before we get to that stage.
Oh, I thought someone was a little bit too high there. I think someone might have grazed the wall a little bit through 1 and 2. It's not too bad if you graze it, but the thing is, you'll see everyone, even if they're taking the high line, they'll take one groove off of the top. That's for obvious reasons. One's a little bit of safety, give yourself a bit of buffer to the wall in case you get a little bit tight mid-corner. The second is you do not want to be in that high groove. There isn't any rubber up there. It's dirty. It's dusty. And especially in 3 and 4, there are some wild bumps on the high side, which as soon as you go over, you're in the barrier. There's nothing you can do. You can see you can run a little higher in 1 and 2 than you can in 3 and 4. That comes from a little bit of practice and track knowledge, but you have to know that. You have to know where you can go high. You can't just be like, oh, well, I've seen them all do it in real life. I'll just do it. I'll do it as well.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Tracks are, they're not what's the word, like symmetrical as such. Every single meter of the track is a bit different. You need to learn where those bumps are, and especially here on iRacing that we're using for the race. Every bump, everything like that, all the different elevation changes, they're all modeled into the track, and you have to really know. Is it three wide across the stripe? We've got who's that in the middle? Can't quite see one. The Alcantech cars there in the middle, and that is a very awkward, difficult position to be in. So we've got Blix there. He's got Ericsson on his outside. And that is, I can't tell you how hard that is to go through those corners when everyone's doing different speeds. Look at this as well. 6 cars battling it down the back straight. They try and work their way through. A bit of bump drafting there. The 95 works his way to the front of the pack.
Yeah, Hafli Darson, I think, was just about in the barrier off of, certainly had to lift out. It left Ericsson with absolutely nowhere to go, so had to lift out himself. All of that slowing it down. It's bringing back the number 1 of Gunnarsson rejoining the fight, obviously having a couple of struggles in the early stage of this race. But that was some big gains for a couple of these in this pack. I think Linus Broström's about to get past Orban as well around the outside into T1. Obviously a bit of 3 wide on the inside, working their way through. That'll be Arilton just working his way past at least a couple of them.
Lap 36. This is kind of the start of the opening of the pit stop window, but realistically you want to go to lap 37 if you can for the fuel number if you go green towards the end, as there's Ericsson in 24 diving up the inside. But is anyone going to come down? It's a difficult pit entry here. You have to stay very low, almost a brake on in turn 4, but I think everyone for now should be able to go. No, there's a couple of cars diving in, and this is going to be a very interesting one. And yeah, he was leading out towards the front, so obviously couldn't save that fuel.
Yep, so Holmer is into the pit lane. Not too much drama when it comes to aiming for the race victory, of course, is coming in about where we would expect to still be able to go for that. We'll have to do a little bit more fuel saving just to save an extra lap, either on the next stint or the one after. But to be fair, when you consider they do the full formation lap and stuff, I'd suspect there is definitely an extra lap in there. So for the race victory for Holmer, obviously still well on. Might well pull himself quite clear though, with if we're expecting that sort of 1.5 to 2 second a lap difference in fresh tyres over old.
Oh, but they stay out for another lap. This is a 2-lap difference for Holmer. That just shows you how much more fuel you use out the front, leading like he is. And this is going to be very interesting. Lap 40, remember, stage points given. We remain green, though. So that's going to be a big factor with how we move into the second part of the race. But who's going to get those 10 points at the moment is Jesper Eriksson leading the way. But lap 38, can someone go 2 laps further? Or technically, they need to go 3 laps further because they'll have to go on to lap 41 and finish lap 41 before they can get into the pit stops. Everyone's coming down low. They're going to be a huge gaggle of cars going into the pit lane. Some go up high, though, potentially to continue for another lap.
Yeah. I reckon some definitely have the fuel to get there. If quite a lot in this grouping are able to make their way even this far, I would be shocked if someone in that mid pack has not been able to save enough fuel to get to stay out on track for lap 40. I would be surprised because you've got so much fuel saving around here. When you've got worse tires, you actually use less fuel because obviously you're on throttle for less time, courtesy of having less grip. So you're not powering it through, you're not punching it through the corner all the time. You've been in the mid pack, you've been saving through in the slipstream as well. I reckon quite a few of these are going to stay all the way out till the stage.
And here we go, on towards lap 40. Stage points gifted at the end of this lap. The top 10 get 10 through 1 points, 1 point per position, basically. And these are going to be some important points, potentially, when we get towards the end of the championship. As it stands, Jesper Eriksson, who's won the previous 2 races, is leading the way. But Blix and Brustum are fighting out for that second place. But also, here comes the number 2 of Ullmann across the back straightaway. Linus Brunström up 23 places to 3rd place. As we come in towards 3 and 4, Ericsson should have this one covered as we come across the line. Is anyone going to pit? Do they have enough to go round? They're going to have to sacrifice. Yes, they do. Is that maybe Ullmann coming in? Didn't have enough for this one final lap. And as we come across the line for the stage for the Hafli Club 350s, Jesper Eriksson, who takes the 10 points with Blix and Brewster following in behind. But as we say, the race continues on.
Yeah, Carlin was the one coming out of pit lane there. Probably was coming out into a little bit of fear with literally the entire pack. Now it's time to burn these tyres up, bring it straight into pit lane. No one's going to be able to save until lap 54. So there's not too much point in going longer because as much as you might be waiting for a caution. Again, we've said cautions. I wouldn't play that percentage game. They're unlikely around here. Start playing the strategy to go and win the race. Bring it down onto pit lane. Linus Brostrom says, "What are you saying, Lewis? I ain't doing any of that."
Linus Brostrom goes out for another lap. Yes, he does, all on his own, but he's going to be trying something. He's definitely not doing a one-stop as literally everyone else is coming into the pit. And not quite a few drivers staying out, but they might be some of the ones who pitted already. But certainly Brostrom trying something. Of course, the longer you go now, the shorter your stops are later, and especially if we get a caution and you pit under caution, everyone's coming in at the same time. If your stop is a couple of seconds, you'll go massively up the queue with everyone being all bunched up. This is looking really nicely. By lap 42, Brewster he came in just before we went live saying, 36, 37 laps. No, 42 is going to be for the Bright Esports driver.
Well, that's what happens when you're in the mid pack, and certainly was so. Now he brings it onto the lane, so certainly going to be saving quite a bit when it comes to that final stop, which will be the next one they do. Obviously, everyone leaving in one big pack. This will be quite narrow on pit lane. You really have to filter in once you've left the lane because you've got to stay on the apron before you get round 1 and 2, and then you can rejoin the circuit, of course. You can't just blast it straight back onto the racing line. You can see it's actually quite a narrow run all the way around. It is wide enough for a single car. You cannot take it too wide on the apron.
Yes, it's a very difficult pit exit at this track, as you said. There's Brewstrom coming out the pit lane. Everyone's getting up to speed themselves already through 3 and 4, and of course the momentum is going to be a big factor when we get a little bit further. But as we come across the line, we'll have to, of course, wait for the times to work it all out. That's Solo also staying out towards the front in that 13 machine. The lap 43, really good saving in that mid pack.
Yeah, but of course has lost a lot of time in doing so. There is that Brostrom having problems? Did he miss his box or something?
Oh, you might be right. Linus, he's staying to the low line. Holmer's going to go around the outside to take the effective race lead. Holmer's into the pit lane. Brewstrom, and he's not going fast either. He's coming in. He's obviously had some sort of issue there. Even
it's
if it
not
was
taking fuel. If he's either found his box and it's not put fuel in, he might have turned fuel add off.
Oh no.
But he's had to crawl around with whatever fuel was in the car. I would be surprised if that was running at the moment, which obviously in real racing would be horrendous for the engine. But we'll be able to bring it into the box, get some fuel in. But that has been very, very costly.
Yeah, certainly is. He's going to need a caution to get back up to the field, and he might actually lose a lap as well. Yeah, he should do. So there's going to be a lap down for Linus Brewstrom. It was looking like he was trying something on the strategy to potentially get to the race lead, but now 1 lap down, that's going to be very difficult indeed. Lap 44 onto lap 45. Holmer leads by 2 seconds from Blix and Ericsson in your top 3. Uhrmann, Gunnarsson and Aronson round out your top 6.
Can't say that we're shocked, though. Holmer obviously came in a couple of laps prior to Blixt and Ericsson. Of course, the lap prior, if I remember correctly, from Uhrmann. So, yes, was the earliest of all of them to come in. Certainly had the pace, and we know that the undercut is worth around about 1 second to 2 seconds a lap. I don't suspect it will come down that quickly for Blixt behind, but the moment that they get within sort of like that 1.5 to second margin, the gap will basically just disappear, and it is coming down a bit quicker than I expect. I think, to be fair, at the moment, Daniel Holmer will probably be under driving the car again, playing along over the sides, knows that pack's going to close up. There's no point in trying to outrun him right now.
Yeah, and also his issue is to get on a 2-stop, you need to have 1 37 lap stint. So 36, 37, something like that. He did 36 on the first stop. Of course, that included the formation lap. So he needs to try and get a 37 lap somewhere, but he's out in the lead on his own. He won't be able to save the fuel. So this is, actually maybe not the best position to be on, but we'll have to see how he covers that one. Realistically, with the formation lap, he should be able to get that 37, but at least something just for him to consider as we get in towards this midpoint of the race. 4th round of the season, the Hafli Club 350 for the Bohlin Svenska Eracingligan, and it's certainly been a very strategic one in the opening race. No caution so far, as we're slowly but surely getting to halfway.
Certainly so. Well, Holmer being in that sort of in that position, I think that the hardest thing for Holmer right now is kind of like not over driving it, because you're by yourself, because you have no reference of other cars. When you're in that mid pack, early on in the race, you kind of like it's so much easier to drive to a number, because obviously he was at the lead of the pack, but because you've got everyone around you. You just drive to what everyone else is doing, basically, and everyone you'll find that sort of like the underdriven rhythm of the race. Whereas when you're by yourself, obviously in practice it's so much easier. It's effortless almost, just to keep doing the laps and keep ticking it off the ones that you need. Whereas when you're actually in the race, adrenaline's pumping, you're leading. It's so easy to overdrive, especially in the early stages of stint when you have good tyres and you've been on old tyres for ages. And the problem is that overdriving it now, you don't just pay that price for the next, couple of minutes or whatever. You have to deal with that pain for near enough, half an hour, basically, from overdriving it basically for just 5 laps at the start of a stint. You've got to drive within yourself and drive to the number.
Yes, it's not the easiest one, as you say. When you're on your own, you really just sort of do what you think is best, and hopefully it works out a little bit later on in the race. The gap has come down and was just over 2 seconds after the pit stop, is now down to 1.3, and I wonder how much is that just on tyres, or is it just on pace as well? Blix, one of the fastest drivers in this championship. How is it going to work out for him over the next half of this race? Ericsson in behind, of course, winner of the last 2 races, still looking very, very strong so far, but with no cautions, there's no crazy strategy ideas that he can get. Gunnarsson jumps up into that 4th place from Ullman, as we've got, what's that, about the top 7? Yeah, top 7, just sort of breaking away a little bit from that mid-pack. Broström now is down in 25th place, 1 lap down after his troubles.
Big shame for Linus Broström, of course, one of those drivers up there in the championship, but hasn't taken a victory, so is not progressing. I think Linus will definitely take a race victory at some point. I don't think he's particularly worried about it. Came into this saying that he really likes Auto Club, that he's got speed around here normally, but he was saying that it didn't quite feel right, that there wasn't the speed that he would normally expect from himself around here. So yes, basically this is a race to almost throw into the bin straight away, which is a big shame, but you never know. Obviously one caution can change everything in this, but with the strength of the field that we've got, with the position that we're in the race, we're approaching halfway. It's not one where we typically expect cautions. It's now just keep ticking away the laps and, to be honest, pray, but I wouldn't be sat there expecting anything.
Oh, certainly is. Gunnarsson is making some moves, trying to get up inside that top 3. Yes, but Ericsson on his outside in the black and red number 37 machine. But look at his teammate, the number 95 of Blix, giving that draft to the number 1 machine of Gunnarsson. Of course, your reigning championship leader, Ericsson, on his outside, battling it through turns number 1 and 2. Now, how good is that low line? He's definitely, he's got the speed there. Can he bring it up to cover off? Yes, but I think he has. Is Ericsson going back forward, or is this just Gunnarsson starting to move his way forward? He's certainly looking very nice so far. It's just in the background of that, there's Aronson in the 24 machine also trying to make some moves and looking very nice. But Lewis, what would you do at this point in the race if you're these drivers? Would you just be chasing down like mad, or would you just still be playing this long game to get that lead?
Absolutely not chasing down like mad. Not a chance. I mean, again, it kind of, same as what I was saying for Holmer. It feels like it's the right thing to do. That is quite high from Blix. You don't want to go any higher than that in 1 and 2. But it feels like it's the right thing to do, to like push 110% to try and close up. But all you're going to do is you're going to burn out the tyres. By the time you get there, you're not going to have any tyres left. And all that work to close up, you will just lose out through the second half of the stint. They'll all know this. And so, again, the best thing that they can do is just keep driving to a number. Keep driving within yourself. Understand that gap will come down, that now is not the time to push 110%. If there's 5 laps left to go in the race, absolutely, now is not that time. And you can see that by Blix having closed into Holmer, but was doing it methodically, lap by lap, closing in a bit here, a bit there, a bit here, a bit there. I'm sure they could have closed that in a lot faster, but it would have put them on the back foot for the rest of the stint. What's the point?
Yes, definitely a bit of a team game as well, potentially, with those 2 drivers, 2 Alcantech cars. This is the 95 going for the race lead up the inside. The number 1 of Gunnarsson is going to be following him through. Holmer holds the outside line through turn 3, but I don't think he's going to have quite enough grip. Just 2 laps older tyres, and it seems like he's definitely got a step down in terms of the grip he has in this car. As we come to the halfway point as well, lap 54 of 109 here for the Hafli Club 350. Enjoying the race so far for sure. Is this certainly been a bit of well, maybe not the last 20 laps, but before that, it's been interesting with the positions changing very frequently up towards the front as drivers try and find just that little bit of strategy edge. But Holmer's really starting to drop back. I wonder how this is going to look for him in 5 laps' time.
Yeah, I mean, the race is going to constantly keep changing, unfortunately, for Holmer. Maybe that early stop is now starting to bite, although with only a couple of laps between them, I don't see that tyre difference being this. I think it was more that there might have been a little bit too hard pushing It's literally like what I was saying. The first 5 laps, honestly, it's the most important bit, is making sure that you don't overpush in those first 5 laps when it's easy to do so. Maybe that's what Holmer's done. Maybe he's just being freight trained because now he's been caught. Once he picks up the slipstream, he'll be able to move his way back. But it's kind of the first time that we've seen him dropping down into the lower positions inside that sort of like top grouping. It is what it is, as we see Gunnarsson taking over the race lead from their teammate. But to be fair, some of the moves that we've seen from Oraldson, that's kind of a bit more where I'd be looking. Is that 24 march its way forward? It's a big move from that car.
Yeah, he's sort of silently, I should say, sitting there just in behind in that third place. And you're right, he is making his way forward. Is just in the back there. So Holmer batting Lindhoff in towards turn 1. Holmer needs to just make sure that he's staying on the back of this lead. Will be 6 cars ahead of him. And he doesn't want to lose that. If he loses the slipstream, that's really going to hinder him. But he should be okay, actually. And he's just got the slipstream of the number 8 machine coming down the back straight. But Gunnarsson as well, looking strong. Definitely show you got to play the old long game in this strategy. And who's that? Just him. It's Hafli Darson in the 81 machines, also trying to work his way onto the back. Maybe we have an 8-way battle as we get towards the midpoint of this second stint. Of course, pitting. The next pit stops will be around the mid-70s lap mark, so still a little bit of a way to go for that one, but then the tyres will start dropping off over the next 10 laps.
Yeah, exactly. If you overdo it, especially going too low. Although I would say about the whole going low thing, and maybe pushing your luck a little bit doing it. I couldn't believe how much speed Lundberg had towards the end of that first stint. Although I will say has dropped back now. I'm not 100% sure as to why Lundberg is down in 10th spot and 4.4 off the lead, because they were certainly looking fast enough to challenge. Maybe it was a slow pit stop, maybe got a little bit bored, maybe a little wheel spin off, maybe was in that kind of like the awkward bit on the exit of pit lane, who knows. But still, 10th place is where they're at the moment. They were the best driver in that first stint on the low line, especially when it came to actually looking after the tyres. You don't typically see too many using that low line and looking after the tyres, but Lundberg struck that really nice balance. I think for all the Holmer fans out there as well, I wouldn't be concerned about where they are at the moment. Yes, they're at the rear of this 7-car train, but I think this is where things, so you cool your tyres down, refocus on the race. I would expect that horrendous, by the way, green and orange machine to work its way back into the mix.
Yeah, God, you're loving slating the liveries today.
I really like this livery, to be fair. I really like
this one. This one is really, really nice. And the all contextual design as well, in general, is nice. And then the fact that they got the different colors is always really nice for the spotting the different drivers. Yeah, my main worry for Holmer, though, is just if he loses that sort of second gap or so, he's getting ready to about 4/10, maybe close to half a second. And then Hafli Darson is really going to be in his mirrors. So definitely something to just to think about over the next few laps. Lap 60 of 109. As we come back to the 11, this is Shirt. We saw him a little bit earlier. Also, he's got a teammate around him, number 35. They were a little bit further up as well, but it seems like there was this, sort of these group of drivers who just dropped off that lead battle after that first round of pit stops. Maybe a slightly slower stop for some reason, even just by a couple of tenths. So that's in the wall a little bit for the 11 machine there of Sherp. He's got 4s coming in behind, but definitely that pit stop altered it a little bit, just spread out sort of the top 15, top 20.
Yeah, it can be a little bit, difference on how they're firing them up as well, the tyres. On like coming out of the pit lane and whether they're going super aggressive to get some heat on the tyres. Maybe they're not. Maybe they're really underplaying at the moment so that they are stronger at the end of the stint. Yeah, there's a lot of strategy in that. It can be you just losing quite a lot of time on the entrance to pit lane. You don't typically lose as much on the exit of pit lane, but the entrance to pit lane you can lose a fair amount. Although to be fair, I did see everyone kind of coming down together, but then you may get tripped up a little bit. I don't know if anyone missed their box as well. That is quite easy to do in these, especially when it comes to sliding through. But then they drive these cars all the time. It's quite weird to see them lose that much time through pit lane. But there's a lot of different reasons and places it could have been. Is what I was saying. Again, right now in the second stint of this race, I wouldn't be too concerned. If I was that far off though on the start of the final stint, suddenly we're looking at some problems.
Yeah, especially if it remains green, that gap is just going to get bigger and bigger potentially. But we're definitely seeing Hafli Darson there catching up, and maybe the drivers behind as well of Helmbro and Lundberg, not too far off actually. So definitely want to look at that gap for Lundberg, 4.7 seconds across the line. If that is going to close up over the next couple of laps, as we said, the tyre wear will be starting to kick in now. The first round of the first stops of the second round of pit stops in this race will be coming potentially in 10 laps time or so. So we are into that final sort of quarter of the stint where the tyres are going to be starting to scream just a little bit if the drivers over pushed and overdid it so far in the first half of this second stint of the race. But everyone actually is looking like they're keeping it very calm, at least with the cars that we're looking on board with.
I've got to say, we're not even really that far away from drivers like Holmer coming back into the pit lane. What was 36 that he came in. So 72, realistically, I think it's probably going to be more sort of like 73, 74. So in about 10 laps time, we'll see Holmer returning onto pit lane. Although now in that kind of like mid-pack now is able to save the fuel. Although I will say Holmer's not close enough to Lindoff to really get that big benefit from the slipstream and thus the fuel save in doing so. And you also got to say that taking this really high line, whilst is great, you are actually travelling quite a significant amount further across a stint, which means you use less fuel. More fuel, sorry. Less fuel, more fuel. The other thing, the exact opposite of what I just said.
Yeah, more meters, more time on throttle, and more fuel. It's definitely just a little bit, a tiny fraction, but it always adds up, especially when we're doing pretty long stints around here. We do have an 80% fuel tank, so slightly smaller in this series, but still plenty of laps. 2 miles a lap, which means we're doing well over 70 miles per stint. Now, definitely add up if you do an extra so many feet every lap or so. Definitely will need to be taken into consideration. But of course, in racing, we look at the time factor as much as the distance factor. So if you're able to keep up the lap time, then it's definitely worth doing. As Holmer has dropped off this top pack a little bit. He's a second behind, and Hafli Darson's trying to come back at him up the inside there for P7. Yeah.
I mean, like I say, you're always thinking about where the checker flag is and where that final stop is. Obviously, if you've done endurance racing, you're kind of playing the race backwards at all times. You want to know when your final pit stop's going to be on the horizon. That's kind of where they're at the moment. Although with this grouping coming back together again, all of these are certainly in the fight for the victory. Hafli Darson making his way past Holmer after Holmer, I think, was a little bit too high in 3 and 4 on the previous lap. And that was why he lost out. See, Hafli Darson was closing in and now has worked his way past. The problem in doing so is that it was actually looking quite good for Hafli Darson. It was a second up towards Holmer, and then it was about a second up to this grouping. Now, courtesy of that mistake from Holmer, it's actually 1.5 seconds to that grouping. So you've kind of like you've been messed over by someone else, and now it's actually more awkward for you to catch. You have to burn more fuel to get there. Oh, for goodness sake. Very frustrating there for Hafli Darson, but still closing back into this grouping as we head towards that very important final stint.
Yeah, I was looking at that gap to Lundberg. I said, 4.5 seconds, will it go down? It's gone up to 5.5. Yeah. So, maybe not for him, but Helmbro is still looking pretty nice. But as ever, we are at that point, a handful of laps or so, maybe a little bit more from the next round of pit stops. And, of course, the tyre wear and the consistency of being able to drive the tyres that are worn. This is where we're going to see potentially some changes in the lap time of the drivers who control it a little bit more. They'll be starting to come out on top, although these top 4 have stayed in the same order for a little bit of a while now. Gunnarsson, Blixt, Arason, and Ericsson, your top 4 as it has stand. But the number 8 of Lindoff, he's actually been coming in slowly but surely as well into this battle for the top 5. So I definitely think the order after the next round of pit stops is going to be very, very important for looking how we're going to battle this final stint. Because if we go green the whole race, it's just going to be like this to the end in that third stint. And at some point, you need to find an advantage to jump to the front.
Now, obviously, if Holmer did what he did in the previous stint, which is pit 2 laps early in this group, he will, if he were to do exactly the same thing as what he did in the previous stint, he'll actually be back in this group, which was gaining seconds from pitting 2 laps earlier, but then has dropped off quite a lot. Is that because of the 2-lap difference on tyres? I don't believe so. I think it's because of pushing too hard. And so then you kind of think, just don't push so hard. Yeah, but then you don't get the 2 seconds back. So it's kind of like Holmer's actually in a really difficult spot. A driver that looked to be honest, to a driver that I thought was actually going to clear off into the distance based on that first stint, now starting to look a little bit under pressure from the pack. And I don't know if this is jinxing it. You know my opinion on the commentator's curse is a load of rubbish and doesn't exist. And to be fair, anyone can bin it at any point. If they keep driving the way they're driving, we are not getting a caution.
Yeah, they're looking so calm with their battles. No one's looking overly racy. Of course, the track helps to that. But yeah, with the way it's going, I think we're going to be seeing green flag to the end, which would be pretty cool actually. We've had, I can't remember now, so it was something about 8 or 9 maybe at Bristol a couple of weeks ago. We had a fair amount in Kansas as well. So this evens out the average of the season.
It's Bristol though, isn't it?
Yeah, true.
That's just full on Bristol. To be fair, I mean, I've had this a few times at Michigan where I've not been involved in the lead pack. It is so frustrating to never get a caution, right? Because if you're like, say for example, Linus Broström, obviously a lap down at this point. To be fair, anyone outside of this grouping, like Lundberg, who's now dropping off the rear of this train, you're sat there being like, oh my God, for one, you're bored out of your mind because you're just doing laps around the circuit, and it's not the most interesting to drive solo, especially late in the stint because you've got a lot of understeer to deal with, and understeer is not entertaining. Trust me, I drive front-wheel drive touring cars. It's not fun. You're kind of just sat there doing laps this track thinking, I'm bored out of my mind. That was not understeer from Ericsson, though. Wow, that was a great catch, by the way. Was able to drop back in behind Araldson and not lose out to Lindhoff. I don't know how he didn't lose more in all of that. But yeah, you're bored rigid. You're praying for a caution which never comes. It is so frustrating.
Yeah, playing the caution game, I guess sometimes it needs to be done, but for the most part, I don't think it's the way to be winning races. You've just got to be looking at what is in front of you and what the situation is. To be honest, I really think that's going to be the best way to attack as we go on to lap 73. So we are at that magic lap. Potentially, this is 37 laps for those who pitted on lap 36. So everyone did go a little bit longer though, so I think we're going to be waiting a few more laps, maybe 3-4 laps until we see that next round of pit stops, and that will of course work out how many laps they need to do until the end of the race. So that's going to be the all important one. Of course, you want to go as far as you can, so that therefore you'll have as little amount of laps to fill up, and therefore your pit stop time will be slightly shorter.
Yeah, exactly. Like I say, we're really in that vein now. Got a couple coming off of pit lane, obviously trying to change up their strategy. By the way, when it comes to circuits where you can play the caution game and maybe take a couple of risks trying to wait for that caution to come out, like I say, Bristol's always a good one. Already done that one. Obviously, North Wilkes, 100%. You'll get, to be fair, you'll get your money's worth of cautions. And that, I'll tell you that for free. Even Dover's like, it's a really odd one. It's either there are cautions coming out of everywhere or they're none. That was quite a big moment from Goodison. Now the problem with that is that is going to cause damage on the front right. This car's going to understeer a bit more now, and it might be a little slower in a straight line. That did look like it was a bit of a whack.
As Holmer and Limber come into the pit lane. But yeah, that was a decent sized tap there on that number one machine. He's managed to keep the speed going though through turns 1 and 2. And is that just a sign? We saw Ericsson, of course, having the big slide a couple of laps ago. Is this the sign that the tyres are just about to be done? Lap 75 can easily get to the end of the race from here. It just depends how long do you want to go? How fresh a tyres do you want in the final stint? And also how short your final pit stop is going to be. Generally, the longer now is better. But of course, if you're in a position where you have to pit, then maybe you have, of course, no choice in that regard. But the two Alcantech cars still lead the way across the lines. We're getting some pit exit runners. Is that Holmer? Yes, it is. Holmer coming out the pit lane.
Yeah, you can tell because the livery's horrible. But no, I think like anyone who's driven Auto Club on Michigan, you have visited the turn 4 barrier. And if you've done Michigan quite a bit, you've almost certainly visited the turn 2 barrier quite a few times, because sometimes you just carried a little bit too much speed and the front right goes from I can handle this to absolutely not. And that it's so difficult. And I think that's kind of what we saw from Gunnarsson. Did a good job of like saving it, but maybe it looked a little bit worse just because of the smoke that kind of came off, because that car does seem fine. It must have just been a very light graze. Obviously got a little bit of an assistance from his teammate Blix behind just to get him back up to speed. But I'm sure that was a wake-up call above all else.
Yeah, certainly. It's well, sometimes, to be honest, they're going to be on the limit or close to the limit on a lot of these laps. So I'm sure little moments are very, very close to happening. Is lap 77, some drivers coming low. And no, they're going to go back up high once more and go around for another lap. They did go to
41.
Lap 40 or 41, wasn't it, for the stage? So potentially lap 37 laps after that is lap 78. So this could be it, but maybe they would have saved to lap 40 once more.
Yeah, obviously, I think they've had less of a pack around them, which means that they've been able to save less fuel. I still think they would have absolutely been able to save a lap or two. I'd be surprised if they came in now. I think it's more next lap after that, like somewhere in that kind of like 3-lap period is where I would expect this grouping to be coming into the pit lane. Could well be wrong, but I don't think too many of them are coming in now, just because they've been good on fuel numbers. They've been kind of working a bit together and maybe not overdriving things. It's exactly what we're seeing right now, whereas Ericsson has come into pit lane. To be fair, it's probably a good thing, bearing in mind the state of those rear tyres after that enormous slide.
Yeah, he obviously, and the issue with those slides is that increases your tire wear as well. So you've slid because your tires are worn, and then your tires get even more worn. So it's like a big snowball effect. You got to be very careful with doing that too many times. And maybe that was just a sign that he was one of the ones struggling just a little bit. But 30 laps to go in the Hafli Club 350, looking very nice for the drivers to the end. They're going to be saving a lot of time. They're coming into the pit lane though. The number 1, the number 95. Does anyone stay out? Yeah, I think Uhrmann has stayed out, but Aronson also following in, as there goes Holmer in the background, but of course a lap down, and I think it's Hafli Darson just in the background as well. So a lot of the teammates coming in as we hit this next round of pit stops.
You want to stay around your teammate around here, big time, absolutely big time around here. You just got to be keeping clean with them.
And as we get to this next round of pit stops, we'll take a quick message from our sponsor.
Behöver du en bil? Mabi hyrbilar finns på över 150 platser i landet och vi har nästan lika många modeller att välja på. Mabi hyrbilar. Hyrbilar som passar dig.
Hos Bright Esports i Västerås kan du testa på både NASCAR och olika formulabilar, precis som Svenska Eracingligan deltagare. Gå in på brightesports.com och boka just din tid.
And welcome back to the Hafli Club 350. Caution has come out as we've just gone through the second round of pit stops, with the drivers working themselves into their order. But it looks like Jesper Eriksson came out in front, with Gunnarsson second place, Blixt third, Aronson fourth, and Dan Holmer down there in that fifth place. But the caution is an interesting time because, of course, everyone's already made their pit stop, so I assume no one's going to pit under the caution. But you never know, because some fresher tyres at the end, even by a few laps, might be very helpful.
Who's in 10th place?
Linus Broström.
Who has not stopped, who is back on the lead lap, who will stop under caution. I think this has come out at the most unbelievably opportune time for drivers like Linus Broström. Like, it is so unbelievably lucky outrageously so. But you've got to say, yes, it's come out at a very lucky point, but that has come from saving fuel on that first stint to get up to the longest that we saw. Not everyone go, but still went up to, in that kind of vein. It was 41 laps. Yeah, it was 41, wasn't it? And then obviously giving you the extra bit on this. I mean, a lap. If that caution had come a couple of laps later, a lot of that grouping, like Broström, would be hitting themselves.
Yeah, that is very right. It's just the overlap. All the leaders had pit, so obviously Linus sort of gets that lap back as such. But then, the caution comes out, so that is very helpful for him. I've seen a couple of drivers there into the pit lane as it stands, lap 83. So it's still going to be. Yeah, by the time it's going to be obviously a couple more laps by the time this is all sorted out. So it's going to be still a decent way to the end. And I definitely want to be on those fresher tyres, especially from some drivers like Homer. He pit, lap 73? Something around that, 74. And he's already going to be on some fairly old tyres by the time we get to that green flag.
I mean, this is classic over racing. Linus Broström has gone from what we assume might be missing his box, to going then a lap down, courtesy of it, to being in a very questionable position, which also, by the way, that extra lap might have saved him on the caution side of things as well, hilariously. So missing his box, going that extra lap, obviously then going a lap down, to now being in 14th place and the highest driver on fresher tyres. How?
Insane.
That is the most oval racing thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, it's I guess, yeah, you yeah, I don't know, that's just how it is, how it goes sometimes as we're going to side by sides. We're going back to green flag racing, but certainly that's just racing. And he's obviously done a decent job so far, because he went that long that gave him that extra lap for this pit stop as well. But as we come back to the green at the end of this lap, Lewis, what can you expect to the end? Because if we stay green, I mean, it's just going to be flat out, surely.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, obviously there's the whole thing of cautions, precautions, and that is kind of a thing. Broström, by the way, is in 11th spot on those fresher tyres. A couple of drivers like Ericsson have got a couple of laps longer than some of the other contingent in there, so they'll struggle a little bit more. But from around here, those temperatures would have come down. I think this is fairly even for everyone. It's just going to be a big 25-lap push until we see the checkered flag. I don't suspect we'll see another caution. I think everyone's expecting that to be the case, so it's push until you see a winner.
Yeah, this is going to be exciting, I think, towards the end of this race. I've got 25 laps to go of the Hafli Club 350. Pretty much fresh tyres on everyone. They've all got fuel to the end, of course. This is going to be a really exciting battle here in California. The fourth round of the season for the Bohlin Svenska Eracingligan. We've got Ericsson and Gunnarsson on your front row as we come to the first restart of the day. Lap 84, first caution, but it's going to be Ericsson getting them underway once more. We go back to green flag racing here for the Hafli Club 350, the Auto Club Speedway. Ericsson already up towards that high line to cover off anyone trying to do something around the outside. It seems to be the most important line today. Gunnarsson is having to hold off Arvidsson just in behind. A bit slow, though, to go 3 wide in behind. Yeah,
Ericsson actually timed that restart really, really well, but watch out for the run that we might well see from Blixt on the run down towards 3 and 4. There could be a look to the inside, although I think Blixt might play this one a little bit more patiently. So Ericsson taking over that top spot. Obviously, Ericsson and Blixt, the two drivers that have won this season, now looking to battle it out for it. But everyone else behind is thinking that maybe it's my time to win. Auto Club out in the barrier. I think that one might have been Sherp.
Oh, yeah, don't want to be putting in the wall just yet. Still a few laps to go. Got to be keeping that car clean as we're 3 wide across the stripe. That is very nice. Lindhoff in that number 8 machine is on the inside. There's Broström in the middle for that Bright Esports team, trying to get himself up inside that top 10. Some moves are being made as well coming through turns 2. This is the time actually where this is probably quite nice to make some moves. Everyone is really close together, and you can see that they're taking those opportunities up the inside. There's Lindberg to the inside a little bit further. A brush of the wall there from Dan Holmer in the 79 machine.
Yeah, well, Holmer loving this high line. It's actually going to work out for him really nicely because everyone else only likes to sit a groove or two off. There's a big crash ahead, though. Here comes another caution.
Certainly does. Lap 86. I believe that might be the number 2 machine of Ehrman, who's involved in that. Didn't quite see who else. Big hit, though, on the exit of turn 4. It was all looking nice from the camera angle initially. Then we cut to a big crash. So there must have been someone maybe coming up high. And that's what happens when you get these sort of changes of line. You get the drivers on the low line. They come up high and they squeeze up the drivers on the outside, potentially into the wall. As, cautions breed cautions. And, 2 in about 5 laps.
May have also been a driver pushing it a little bit too hard through 3 and 4 by themselves and going up into the barrier themselves, which will then ping ball them down into the mid pack. That might have been what's happened. That does typically happen around Auto Club, especially if you do open racing, just on the standard iRacing service. If you do understeer up into that, it's going to be a big crash. Might have been that. It's kind of the exit of T4 is where we expect it. And that's actually part of the risk when you run the high line. And to be fair, I will say it did seem like Holmer got quite lucky there. If you run the high line, when there is the crash, where does the crash go on an oval? The crash goes up the circuit, right? It always goes up. Because obviously, it's just how it works, physics. And when you're on the high line, you've got nowhere to go. Meanwhile, if you're on the low line, if you're like Lundberg, who loves being a bottom feeder, loves going low, loves keeping it nice and tight to that white, well, not the white line, but in that second groove, it's a lot more comfortable to kind of avoid crash. You've got a lot more options.
Yeah, certainly. When the cars stop turning left, they go straight and up high. Let's see what this happens. There's number 2. There's Ehrman in the middle of that 3 wide. He's got Lundberg on his inside. The 77 Helmbro to his outside is all looking rather nice at this point. Is there going to be a convergence? Yes. Lundberg comes a bit high, pushes Ehrman up. And actually, to be fair, the further contact wasn't too bad. Another contact in the background there. But the actual crash itself was really just Ehrman going for a spin as one of the Bright Esports, that Brewstrom coming out of the pit lane. A few drivers taking the opportunities, but that crash wasn't quite as bad as I was expecting for the first time.
No, the speed, it always looks a little bit worse. Lundberg certainly was understeering a little bit there, maybe pushing it a bit too hard. Car got a bit tight. Sorry, I'll use the language. It's not understeering, it's tight. Even though we're all Europeans here, so we all understand the word, what understeer means. Whoa! No, we'll change it down to a 5-letter word. It'll be much easier.
Yes, obviously tight and loose. Nice ways to describe the car. And a few drivers, there was actually quite a few, who came into the pit lane there. So guess what happened at Kansas a few weeks ago? All we're going to see, definitely Lundberg coming up the track a little bit. That's quite a lot as well. Maybe didn't know it was a 3-wide situation, although spotters would be nice. Not the nicest one there for the number 2 machine.
I mean, to be fair, from riding on board there, do you not think there was a bit of oversteer? The car was getting a bit loose, and maybe that's kind of what, for one, you don't change your line there as much when you're in Ehrman's point of view. You get a bit loose in that middle of the pack, and it also kind of made him come down a little bit. At least it kind of just a little bit instinctively. It just looked a little bit like that as well, to where I'd almost not remove all of it from Lundberg, because I still think he was coming up a little bit too much. But I don't know. I think there's more to it, Cam.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I'm trying to look. Is that Lundberg in that yellow machine? Almost looks like he's turning right in the left-handed corner. The car's crabbing quite a bit, I think. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
He's got quite a bit of damage from that. He's going to try and continue the race, coming back to the green. But yeah, I think I agree with you on that one a little bit, because every little, just 1 degree of the car's angle makes a big difference when all the lines are changing. But this is the second caution of the night. We've had 2 in 10 laps after this second round of pit stops. So going to the end in terms of fuel and tyres, unless we get more cautions, then we might see some extra pit stops. There are drivers in behind who have gone onto those fresher tyres, including Dan Solo. We got a Brewstrom back there as well, and a few other drivers just outside top 10, so top 15 or so. They're going to be coming through with faster and fresher tyres. The drivers in the front, they've already been on these laps, over 10 laps, of course, caution laps, but still further miles on those tyres. As we come back to the green flag racing, this time it's Blixt on that inside line. So his teammate Gunnarsson to push him forward as well, with Ericsson on that front row, Aronson, his teammate, in behind. So the two pairs of teammates as we come back to the green flag racing. The number 95 with an awesome start gets a huge jump on the field. Gunnarsson's going to have to follow him through. Let's see if we get any more 3-wide action coming in towards turns number 1 and 2. Remember, just 20 laps remain as every single line is being used in turn 2.
Yeah, absolutely. We're going a bit of 3 wide. There's a bit of contact as well on the low line. Could have seen an Ericsson, I think, coming a little bit together as there was a bit of a pinch. As we head up towards turn 4, there'll be more action in the background, including another caution. That's our third one in 3 laps. And yeah, I think this might last. Cautions, precautions, and all that lot. So getting yourself ready for that final. There's going to save them enough fuel so that if we do go for a few green white checkers, they'll be all right. What I was going to say, by the way, on the previous caution when we were having a little bit of a chimney, I've just rewatched the instant. That is definitely on Lundberg. I'm looking at it. No, that's there. Was fine. It was definitely Lundberg.
Yeah, he just came up too much. But yeah, just. Even half a car width is a lot around here, and he certainly came up just a little bit more, squeezing a 3 wide situation. Didn't quite see what happened this time around. Is sort of in the mid pack there. I definitely saw a bit of a brush of the wall first, and then about 2 seconds later, the car's spinning. So I wonder if someone went into the wall on the exit of turn 2, and then obviously just tried to save it, and then caused a bit of a chain reaction with that one. Certainly. Yeah, a tricky part of this race for the drivers to keep cool. They were prepared to go green to the end of the race, I'm sure. And now we've had 3 cautions in quick succession. This really breaks up your rhythm.
No, you're absolutely right. But no, you're absolutely right. Perfect English. I can speak it. But no, like, spot on. The thing is, as much as it's, it's kind of ended the race for quite a few drivers, it's opened up the race for others. And that's kind of like the important bit, when you're looking at, the likes of Linus Bergstrom has been brought back into the race, even though I still think that there might be some more problems on that car. I mean, take a look at this from overhead.
Yeah, so got 71 of Bergstrom there, but it's just in behind, 3 wide, almost an identical situation to what we saw of Lundberg, but a bit more further tap to the back of that machine. Can't quite read the numbers. Is that the 111? I think it might be, the 111 of Bratberg, unfortunately getting involved in that one. He's got his teammate and one other on his outside, just came up a little bit. Because he was tagged on the back of the car, it obviously then just rotated the front into the wall. If they were completely side by side, they might have been okay. But yeah, when you get that front to rear contact, it's generally not good for the car being hit on the rear.
Yeah, it's unsavable. I mean, to be fair, a lot of the time with this, you don't even necessarily need to make contact. By getting to the rear quarter panel, you can stall the aero on the rear of the car, and that can cause a bit of oversteer. And so, if getting close to it causes a couple of problems for the car ahead, you can kind of imagine what happens when you make contact. It doesn't need to be a heavy bit of contact. A light bit of contact will send you into the wall. It's what makes racing these cars so difficult. Your spatial awareness has to be absolutely bob on. I mean, you'll know a little bit about like stalling aero around cars from driving like GTs and stuff elsewhere in sim racing. We won't say that's fine. But obviously about like stalling rear diffusers and stuff. Like, there's a lot you can do with the opponent's car without touching them. That's not illegal, but is a little bit like, it's not going to make them very happy. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, the aerodynamics, when you're basically driving, I mean, they are pretty slick cars, but it's still, a brick going through the air at 180 miles an hour. There's a lot of turbulence
coming.
Offended
all the NASCAR fans.
Yeah, coming through that. But you know what I mean? It's a very sort of boxy shape. It's not, like a spear that's really thin and narrow. There's a lot of stuff, and especially around the wheels and the wheel wells, there's a lot of air going around there. You've got the air coming past, you've got the air spinning from the wheels. It's certainly a big factor to think. And that is why we see, especially when we get to the restrictor plate tracks, especially the aerodynamics are so important because you don't have the power to push through. But Lewis, how many laps are you betting this time around?
Oh, see, I want to be positive and I want to say all the way to the end, especially after that post I put on Twitter the other day. I'm being positive. We're going to the end of the race, although I think we might last 3 laps. So we'll see.
Yeah, certainly will. I wonder if that's 3 laps or 3 corners. In fact, it wasn't even 3 corners. It was 2 corners last time around. Let's see what happens. 3rd restart of the night and 3rd caution in quick succession. Drivers don't have too many laps to go. Be about 16 at the line before we get to the checkered flag. We do have some green-white checkers as well if we do not finish under that green flag the first time around at lap 109. So drivers need to think about that with the fuel that they have left in their tank, but they should be okay, especially for the ones who pit. Still a few drivers in behind coming from fresher tyres, but can these drivers at the front hold on to it? It's Blix and Ericsson once again on that front row, and Blix continues to have his teammate Gunnarsson just in behind. It's going to be Lundberg in that fourth place, trying to push Jesper Ericsson through as they go to green flag racing once again. Bit of a slow start there for Jesper Ericsson. Unfortunately, he's going to lose a couple of car lengths and might have to drop down there if he doesn't want to lose out to his teammates. Got Aronson coming up his inside. 3 wide in the background. There's Holmer going to the outside. That is a very risky situation, but he loves that outside line, Lewis.
Classic Holmer move. Straight around the outside. He loves taking it up towards the barrier. Might well sneak another one, but he's got into the barrier himself. He tried pushing it a little bit too deep. This is kind of the whole thing of like, if you're trying to get around the outside on the exit of the corner, you're asking for that car to come up into you. Does manage to get past Solander on the exit, but Holmer with probably a little bit of damage on the front right fender.
Oh, yeah, that's not going to be nice coming to end. Oh, bit of squeeze up. Holmer's going to have to back out of that one. Yes, he does nicely. Otherwise, he'd have been pinched into the wall there. Almost got a repeat of what we saw a few laps ago. Is that Brewstrom just on the back of that top 10 as well? Looking really nice. The bright esports car. I think he's getting up the inside potential of Hagman there. Or maybe just behind Hagman for that 11th place. He's coming from fresher tyres. He's one to look out for. All caution goes out once more. Blix was slightly in the wall, but it's something that's happened in behind.
We were doing so well. We were doing. Sorry, I'm channeling like there's this vibe. I've done some oval racing in a series run by a tyrant of the sim racing world, one Mr. Oscar Hardwick, and I'm just getting like PTSD from remembering what it was like being in a race of his league when the cautions started coming out, because he would jump into the voice chat, bearing in mind his league and all that, and would start getting very cross because it's like you should be able to go, like, you've done the hard work, you've got 80 odd laps into a race without getting a caution, and now we've picked up 4 in 15 laps, which is mad.
Yeah, it's wow, yeah, it's just how the racing goes sometimes, as you're right. 4 and 15 laps, that is pretty carnage, considering that includes the laps that are behind the safety car as well. The third time we've basically done 1 lap on the restart. It's going to be a very difficult one. At what point does it get, Lewis? Do you think about going into the pit lane? But I guess maybe it's too late now, isn't it? It's probably too late for those that have stayed out.
Do you know what? If genuinely, if I'm sort of like one of these drivers, like say for example, 15, 16, 17, that kind of bit, if I'm towards the back, and to be fair, even Linus Brostrom, you're in 11th spot. Certainly if I'm like in 20th position, if I'm still on the lead lap, I'm coming in. I mean, obviously you can't just do that every single stop because you've only got 5 fresh tyres. Let's take a look at what happened on the replay though. Yeah,
certainly. Coming across the stripe, we've got the 013 machine there. Someone going so that's Lindoff. Oh, but he gets turned, unfortunately. And that isn't. Oh, that's a bit of a nasty crash actually. Down the front straight, fastest part of the track pretty much, and getting spun around there. That was that had potential to be worse, but I think he just about got away with that.
Yeah.
Been involved.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is what it is. But yeah, like I was saying, and you can actually see that because quite a few of those drivers towards the back end of the lead lap, they have come into the pit lane. I think that is absolutely the right move because you want those fresh tyres. Yeah, it's not crazy around here. It's not super high tyre wear around here. But, those extra 10, 15 laps, I know most of those have been under caution, it does make a bit of a difference.
Yeah, it certainly does. And we haven't had a green-white checker so far this season. We are only at round 4 though. We do have 20 rounds of action coming your way between now and May when we get to Homestead Miami and for the playoff final. But certainly, it's not going to be long, I don't think, before we get to those green-white checkers as the season continues and as everyone starts to get those moves on the final lap. Might we see that this time around? 12 laps remain here at the Hafli Club 350. Blixt will come to lead once more. Going to be coming onto the front straight. Oh, further caution, contact in the background. That must have been just a little bit before the contact that we saw. That's why the number 8 was slowing up, actually. And it was Mark Stiller just on the outside there getting spun as everyone sort of checked up a little bit and not quite going full speed.
Bit of a comedy of errors there, but by the time we go racing, it'll be I think 11 laps left to go because it should be next time by that we'll be turning the lights off, or this time I will turn the lights off. Next time by we'll go and race and something in that vein. Will we see another caution? Well, I mean, if you'd have asked me ages ago, I would have said absolutely not. Whereas now, again, my optimism is disappearing every second.
You've given up on them
to the point where I'm just sort of like, yeah, we're getting another caution. We're not. I don't think we'll see all 3 green white checkers, but we might see a green white checker, which would be the first time this season.
Yeah, I was looking confident actually of us finishing well inside the time limit. As well. I think we still should be good unless we go caution heavy towards the end, but we were looking well inside. But of course, these 4 cautions now in a row pretty much have slowed the pace down a little bit from pretty much lap 75 or so. So the last 20 odd laps have just been under these cautions as we go side by side onto the back straight once more. That means we're coming to the green flag. Blixt and Gunnarsson are on your front row. So this time around, they're not in line. They are side by side. Is that going to affect them on the restart? Because they got the teammates in behind, the 37 and the 24. They can start to work together as well. We've still got Lundberg just in behind. He's also a bit damaged up towards the front. What can he do to get involved? We've got 21 minutes remaining. So under green flag, that is going to be all good to get to lap 109. But how many green flag laps will we get between now and the end of the race? 4th round of the season, the Hafli Club 350 is going to get underway. Is it going to be the final time, or are we going to go to caution once more? Hard to predict with how these races have gone. 12 to go. It's going to be 11 at the line. And Eric Blixt, who's led the way, won the first race of the season for a long time this race. He's been looking good. Can he do it one final time with a dash to the finish? Let's see how he gets the restart. Huge jump it's going to be. Ericsson with a better start this time around. He's going to be side by side with Gunnarsson there on the inside of the P2. Can he hold on to that? No, not quite. It's going to be the slipstream around the outside for Aracingligan. They're still going to be side by side as it stands. Everyone looking very nice and on sort of nice and calm on this restart.
Yep, certainly so. But look at this, Ericsson coming up. Another big snap of oversteer. He's going to lose a couple of positions here. That was a significant snap on the exit of 2. So Ericsson's going to drop back. Aroldson's going to make his way through. So Lander's not going to be quite close enough. But there is going to be a big move to the inside. That's Lundberg sending his way through, heading into T1 and 2. Lots of chops and changes. Once again, Holmer goes back up to the high side.
Broström making his way forward in that P8. He's on the freshest tyres out of this top lot from what I can remember. Those Solanders are on the 140 machine. He must be on fresh tyres. He's coming out of nowhere to challenge up towards this top 4. So definitely a battle of the tyres coming inside this final 10 laps. Blixt and Gunnarsson still leading the way, but let's see how everyone else is going to figure out how they're going to get towards the end of this lap. 37 there. Huge turn there. And that's Solander. He's gone around. There's a big turn. Lundberg, I should say, was involved in that one. Further damage to the car. I can see his front left wheel is off that one. They were looking very nice actually coming through turn 2, but just a little bit of a move up the track and Solander goes round.
Memeville. Here we are. So we get to sit back and again, it's 2 very different sides of this race, to the point where as much as it says 10 to go, as much as we aren't going to hit that timer. I know it says 20 minutes. When you're under caution, a lap round here is roughly, I think it's like the 2-minute barrier, which means that even though that timer is 20 minutes, with there being 10 laps, we shouldn't actually hit it, even if we were basically caution until the end of the race. But here's a question that I actually don't know what the answer is, and I am going to put a wild stab in the dark that you definitely don't know what the answer to the question is. If we've got a timer left in the race and we get a green-white checker, does the timer override the green-white checker? Because it is a timer.
Yeah. Trying to think. So I guess if the in-game system goes to a green-white checker, then surely it's green-white checker.
I don't know.
Surely. I mean, that is something to note down to work out for the next race.
If you think about it from an actual motorsport point of view, from a realist, if there is a timer on a race, the timer is above all else, right? Whether there is green, white checkers or anything, the timer is the priority. The timer is the definitive factor as to whether the race ends or not. Yeah, I don't know if that's the case here.
Yeah, I do agree on that. It's whether we're inside the green, white checker is already, I guess, might be a factor. But yeah, I do believe the timer probably overrules that. So as we come across the line to start another lap, it's going to be 8 to go. Blix, Gunnarsson, Aroldsson, Ericsson, Hafli and Broström there in that 6th place. Man, he's really coming up the order, isn't he, on those fresher tyres? He's going to be looking very strong towards the end. We've got Hagman, Holman, Skoglund and Solo. Solo also one of those pitters at one of the cautions. He's coming through on those fresh tyres as well. Looking very nice indeed. So, Thomas, I'm really excited if we can go green to the end. The issue is onto 5th caution now, and it's basically just at the restart, everyone is going for it. And the closer we get to the end, the more everyone's going to be antsy to get those positions.
I've just asked Arjuna as to what the state was, and he said, "I've actually never seen that." So
very helpful.
we could be making history here. I still don't think we will, because again, the timer and stuff. So yeah, I still think we will end the race prior to that time, but it's an interesting thought and a potential experiment, and now we might have to take into the future. Who knows?
Yeah,
very exciting.
That's why we come racing. And of course, we have some slightly different rules from some other leagues in this Bohlin's Svenska Eracingligan, which we like to see. Here is going to be a replay coming through turns 2. There's Salander. He's that green car. Oh, he went loose himself. He went loose. He got tagged there by Hafli, and unfortunately, Lundberg. Oh, huge hit in there for Lundberg. No wonder his car is done. Wow. Race-ending crash. Jeez.
Yeah, that was a heavy hit. That was a heavy hit. So, yeah. Anyway, we've got 7 laps to go. We'll be going green this time by. It's just about whether we whether we actually get 7 laps of racing. Again, I have less hope on that one. But the more cars that are removed from this, the easier it should be.
I guess that's one way to look at it, as the drivers go side by side once more. It's going to be 6 to go at the line. We'll have enough time to go to the end. 6 laps, that's really not too long. It's a 2-miler, but it's still not too long of a lap around here. Blixt, once again, is going to be restarting with his teammate Gunnarsson alongside him. This is about the 4th restart that Blixt has been in the lead. He's got the teammates of Aradsson and Ericsson in behind them. We've got Hafli, who's teammates of Gunnarsson and Blixt, may be able to get involved. Then we have the 71 of Broström, who's in that sort of pink and luminous green sort of car there on that left-hand lane of the shot. He's coming through on those fresh tyres, so he should have a lot of grip, but does he have enough to try and make a move on these lead packs? It's surely going to be an interesting one, whether we go green to the end, whether we're going to get to the cautions, whether we're going to get green, white, checkered. Still plenty of answers to be had in these final 6 laps here at the Auto Club Speedway. The Hafli Club 350 is going to get underway after a 5th caution of the night. Cautions breed cautions, but are we going to be able to go green flag racing to the end? Blix is going to be on the inside to take back the green flag once more. His teammate is on his outside. He needs to get the jump, needs to get a run to try and help his teammate. A very good launch is actually going to be, but Aradsson there once more not able to get side by side with his rival in that second row. Ericsson's going to be pushing actually Gunnarsson up towards the inside, but look at this, up the inside is going to be there from Hafli. I think he's going to be also Ericsson, I should say, up the inside trying to make some moves 3 wide through turn 2.
Cloud cover's come over, so obviously it's got very dark, especially down in 1 and 2, but that'll have cooled the racetrack down a significant portion, so things are looking quite good. I think Aradsson now on the outside trying to push his way through, obviously being pushed through by Holmer as well, as you can see. Linus Broström as well, also involved in that mix. You can see right in the middle of the pack. This is looking very good though for Blix, who has half a second of a lead. Of course, 5 to go at the line.
All side by side there with Gunnarsson being squeezed as they come across. There's Ericsson in the black and red machine on his outside line. I should say 5 to go, so not too many opportunities. How much risk are these drivers going to take? There is 71 of Broström. He's trying to come through. He's still in that 6th position they had on that restart. Here comes, huge run. Maybe some contact. There's the 12 of Hagman, who had a huge run out of turn 2.
Yeah, there was a couple of moments there. I think it was Gunnarsson that had a very slow run on the exit of 2, and obviously just right on the nose there. It was almost Broström trying to get back down to the inside and almost had that one time to perfection, but it did not work out on that occasion, and there's some more elbows being dished out there in the fight for 3rd.
Oh, certainly apron being used there by the 12 of Hagman. They're just trying to find a bit of racetrack for them. Bit too much moving around for my liking. Oh, bit of a squeeze in a 3-wide situation as well. Blix is just pulling away 10th by 10th with this one. It's going to be Hafli there who takes that 2nd place. He's got his teammate, the number 1 machine of Gunnarsson there. So we're going 3 wide on the exit of turn 2 once more. Oh, this is getting so close between these drivers.
Yeah, but it's not getting close to the race lead. Blix now has nearly a second of a lead. The driver, I think, on this with the best tyres is Linus Broström in the middle of the pack. Of course, pitted later courtesy of the cautions. And he spent most of this race a lap down. That's how crazy it's been for him in the 71. Now working his way back into the mix. Could well have a runner-up position on his hands, but 3 to go. I think the win is gone.
Potentially, yeah. We've also got 2 cars behind Dan Solo in the 13 machine. He's trying to work his way forward. Huge sense to the inside there of the 24, but does he have enough grip to hold it down there and get the run, get the exit speed out onto this back straight? It's going to be very tight as they all squeeze up in towards one singular racing line pretty much down this back straightaway. It's looking so good for Blix, though. He's held that advantage. He's almost out of slipstream range.
Yeah, just breaking at the moment. I think Blixt is looking comfortable right now. That gap still could disappear in 2 laps if the right driver gets behind them and gets into the right position. But right now, I don't think anyone's really got the tyres, and I think they're all so focused on each other. Hafli Darson brings it down to the white line as well. Ericsson, Gunnarsson all fighting over that 3rd and 4th position. Linus Broström's going to go really high here at 1 and 2. I think he's going to try and work his way round unless he's got the tyres to go really low.
Different lines being taken. Ericsson trying to come down, but the number 1 slightly blocking his line that he would have wanted there. Side by side on the exit as they get so close to the wall. This is really nice racing between all of these drivers. Remember, they're on pretty old tyres at this point. They're slightly rusty because we had so much time of downtime behind the pace truck, and this is going to be very difficult for them to hold on to this one. Broström going very high there. Is that going to be enough to hold on to it on the outside?
I think it'll be enough to hold on to it, but he's actually touched the barrier a bit there, so Linus Broström's taken a little bit too much through 3 and 4, and actually it's going to cost him a little bit. He's trying to take that line that we've seen Holmer use quite a bit earlier on as we head onto the last lap of the race, Cam, through 1 and 2. There's going to be a bit of 3 and 4 wide, but that gap for the lead is way too large.
Yeah, I think we know who's going to be winning the Hafli Club 350, but who's going to get second place, who's going to get third, and even the places in behind, they're all going to drive it to the inside, I'm sure, coming in towards turns 3 and 4. Blix leads, Hafli Darson is second, Ericsson going to send it to the inside. There's blocked off though. Hafli Darson comes really tight. Is that going to hinder him coming up towards the line? It looks like he's going to be comfortable for that second place potentially. Ericsson in third, but Gunnarsson, he's going to be coming up towards the apron. Ericsson with a huge chop, but it's going to be Blixt who takes the victory here. 4th round of the season for the Hafli Club 350. Hafli Darson will get second place, Ericsson third, and Broström just at the end. No, Gunnarsson gets 4th place. Broström has dropped down into 5th as we come across the line with Aronson in 6th. A nice finish there up towards the end, but not the battle for the lead that we were expecting. Blixt just got that gap after the first lap of the restart and then managed to hold on.
Yeah, everyone was focused too hard on fighting each other. There's a little bit of a look at the top 2 in the championship. Of course, both of them 2-time winners now. And like you say, just played that one really well, did Blix. Got the restart done right, pulled away in the right way. And whilst everyone was so focused on each other, just played the cards to perfection. And obviously, the most important thing, did not make a single mistake in that final run.
And to be honest, in the whole race, Blixt was up there the whole race in that lead pack. He had it covered. He got the run and that second stint. They caught and overtook Holmer with his teammate Gunnarsson. And look at these donuts across the line. That is what he would have wanted for his Alcantech NHR by Nyman Racing. Absolutely loving that. He won the first race of the season. We then had 2 wins from Ericsson in a row. And now we go back to Blixt for the 4th round. So just 2 winners after 4 rounds. We're starting to see those two sort of get a little bit of a lead at the front. Of course, Ericsson in that 3rd place. He's going to be getting some nice points as well. Also from the stage 10 points as well. Hafli Darson was 5th place in the championship coming into this one, so he's also looked pretty strong. Broström was 3rd place, so really all of the top drivers in the championship coming for the top positions in the race too.
Lots of donuts happening down here, isn't there? And lots of cars driving into each other, which isn't great.
Yeah, I think they're quite hungry, and we actually have some interviews coming in. We'll start with the winner of the previous race. So we'll jump in with Jesper Eriksson. Unfortunately, Jesper, you couldn't continue your winning streak, but you had an awesome race today. You were always up towards the front. And firstly, just describe us those last couple of laps. You didn't quite have enough to get Hafli Darson to the line.
But you guys must have enjoyed that last couple of laps after last year. It was the racing in this series is just amazing. I love every second of it, and sadly I couldn't get the win, but I'm not complaining with this race. It's just unbelievable how hard you can race these guys and how respectful everyone is. And I'm not mad at the 3rd place. It's just keep it consistently, and with this stage win. can't complain about anything in this series, to be honest. Just love it. And wow, I'm exhausted.
Yeah, certainly. And you had all of your championship rivals up there as well. Was there any extra nerves battling the sort of the important drivers next to you, or do you just race everyone the same?
I pretty much just race everyone the same. I know that the Alcantech guys can be pretty hard when they race, but I guess so am I. So we all race super respectfully, and I know I can race these guys hard, and they know they can race me hard. So I guess you are nervous in the last couple of laps because you want to get the win, but I'm not complaining.
Yeah, so congratulations for today, and especially those extra points for the stage win. Congratulations.
Well, thank you very much, boys.
And now we'll move to second place, the number 81 of Michael Hafli. And you had an awesome final couple of laps there, Michael. You really worked your way up towards that second place on that final restart. Just tell us about that. You were certainly looking very strong.
Yeah, I mean, it was a bit unlucky. Got spun or spy. I had contact with the lap marker. And just after that, I took tires, had the pace of the other guys, and was a bit lucky with cautions and not being involved with them. And then, towards the end, I started in fifth. I could get down to the inside and fight from there, which was very nice. It was very fun in the last few laps. I'm completely exhausted, to be honest.
And how did you keep the concentration? Because I think it was 5 cautions we had in the end, very close to each other. So there was a lot of downtime. How did you get the adrenaline going again for that final green flag?
Well, I've been having to pee since lap 70, so that surely has kept me on my nerves. So yeah, but I don't find it too hard keeping the concentration. Like in the team, we have a small, we just chit chat during the cautions, mostly shit talk and a little bit of strategy, and it just keeps my mind out of things until it's time to go, and then it's just comes.
And how difficult was it battling with the old tires around this track? We saw the drivers using a lot of different lines. How was it for you?
I had no clue on what line to do. One lap I could do one line high, and then next lap I would do low, and I just struggled today, and I think many people did. But it wasn't that hard because usually you could predict someone's going high or low, so it wasn't too hard, which was at least something to ease your mind.
Absolutely. And I think you probably made a position or two in the championship. So yeah, congratulations for your race today.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And then lastly, we'll bring in the winner of the race, and of course, winner of the first race of the season as well. Eric Blixt, what a finish you had at the end there, but you really had to work hard for it after those 5 restarts. But yeah, you just you managed to get away by about a second in that final restart.
Yeah, I mean, the first restarts were very messy, so we didn't really have a run. I couldn't stretch it out at all. So it was just a reset, and then luckily the other guys started fighting for whatever position they fighted for. Not first, at least, because I just managed to run away and just keep the gap, and it was a pretty nice sailing to the end.
And if you can remember this far ago in the race, in that second stint, you were chasing down with your teammate Gunnarsson. You're chasing down Dan Holmer at the front, and you had about a 2-second gap after you came out of the stops. Were you pushing hard to chase him down, or were you really sort of being conservative and just doing 10th by 10th? Because that was a really interesting strategic part of the race.
I mean, we weren't really holding back anything, weren't pushing either. So Jonas just had to put the pace in, and I just followed it. He did more preparations than I did. I was busy, so I couldn't really prepare as I wanted. But yeah, we just found a decent pace. We caught up, didn't push it too hard. So we wanted to stretch that run so we could have a short run in the end.
And for the looking to the future, for the next race at the Las Vegas Motor Speedway, we have 2 races. We have a double header. How does that affect your preparation at all going into that race, or is it just going to be, flat out just trying to get the car as fast as possible?
It's probably just going to be two races, 2 short sprint races. Make sure not to do anything stupid. I mean, top 5, top 10 is still good. Just leave it at it and get some good points away from there.
And I guess you're really looking nice for the championship now after those 2 victories. So congratulations for today.
Thanks.
Yeah, that has concluded the Hafli Club 350 here at the Auto Club Speedway. Eric Blix taking victory here tonight after a very quiet first half of the race and then loads of cautions. Here are your results. Blix takes victory from Haflidason in second place, with Ericsson in that third position, getting the final place on the podium. Gunnarsson just missing out in that fourth place, with Linus Brustrom with a completely up and down race in fifth place. Aronson, Solo and Holmer round out your top 8, with Hagman and Skoglund inside your top 10. And interestingly, there, Ullman getting a fast lap on lap 106 just in that final restart. And talking of him, he gets 11th position, with Ullman, not to be confused, in 12th place. Lindhoff is in 13th, with Helmbro, Fredriksson, Schott, Tier, Brostrom, Fors and Salander rounding out your top 20. Unfortunately, Salander there with a crash on that final caution, just missing out. When we came to the final restart. Lundell is in 21st, with Scherp, Johansson there. Bratberg, unfortunately, he was caught up on the caution. So was Stiller, and loads of drivers now laps down. Fraggle, Erling, Karlen, Skeglen and Lundberg. Unfortunately, Lundberg as well. Here's another driver just dropping down at the end there. Ericsson and Nieholm round out your top 32 drivers for the Hafli Club 350. It was certainly an exciting one, but the action does not stop there. Of course, we go next to Las Vegas Motor Speedway for a double header. We have an 83-lap race preceded by a 62-lap race. It's going to be a fun one, I'm sure. We got loads more cautions, loads more restarts, and of course, final lap battles before we work our way all the way to Talladega to the end of the regular season, and then to Homestead for the final race of the season to crown our champion of the Bohlin Svenska Eracingligan. It was a good one tonight, but we prepare for Las Vegas in a couple of weeks' time. And don't forget the Formula Series as well. Next weekend is going to be a fun one here. Loads of racing for the Bohlin Svenska Eracingligan. It's been myself, Cameron Roger, Lewis McGlade alongside me, and producer Phil behind the scenes of this RaceSpotTV broadcast. We'll see you next time, and goodbye for now.